Welcome business crew, I'm back. Australia, we have a problem. The problem that I'm referring to is the COVID-19 situation that we're in. It's a very, very serious problem, and I'm going to be tackling it in this series of podcasts. Because there is so much to this issue, the podcasts are going to be quite long and they're going to be quite detailed. So if you suffer from attention deficit disorder, these podcasts will not really be for you because it's just going to be a little bit boring. But if you consider the issues that are facing us with the COVID-19 virus, if this is something that's of concern to you, if you are being inundated with information, misinformation, and the whole thing is just getting very confusing, then definitely you do want to listen to what I have to say. I have been investigating this issue for quite a while now, and I'm ready to present my findings. And if it's something of interest, stay tuned. My name is Peter Solenico. I am a business consultant, coach, and mentor. I am based in Melbourne, Australia. What qualifications do I have to talk about the coronavirus, COVID-19? Well, the reality is none, zero qualifications. However, I'm not talking from my own experience. I'm actually talking from the experience of scientists, doctors, and specialists in this field. Now, whilst I might not be an expert on coronavirus or COVID-19, they certainly are. So I'm going to be presenting to you the various findings that I have been able to accumulate over the last year or so. Now, what's my position and where do I stand on this issue? Well, I have a particularly interesting position and I have a particularly interesting stance, and this is why I have a lot of credibility in discussing COVID-19 and the coronavirus, and that is because I do not have any predetermined stance. I am a business consultant. One of the services that I provide is a trend forecasting service where I actually do trend forecasting for business owners and industries, and I try to predict or try to assess particular trends, the direction where the economy is going, the direction where people's tastes are moving towards, and so forth. And in doing so, I'm better able to make strategic suggestions for my clients and assist them in how to position their organizations and how to develop their corporate strategies. With COVID-19, what I need to know is what sort of impact is that going to have on society. This is basically where my interest in this started. It started obviously very early last year when we were facing not just lockdowns, but where there were a lot of changes occurring in the economy. As you know, businesses have been particularly hit, and so it was in my interest to find out what the hell is going on, why is it going on like this, and where are we heading? How long could these consequences be? Are they going to be serious consequences, or are they not going to be serious consequences? Will businesses thrive? Will businesses suffer? Which businesses will thrive? Which businesses will suffer? So that's basically where I'm coming from. Now, obviously, in order to be able to provide answers to all these different questions, I had to take a deep analysis, and so I didn't go to YouTube or I didn't go to Facebook to find the answers. I actually went to various academic journals to find out what the hell is going on, and just to get a little bit more information about this virus and what is known about it. As you can see, very, very difficult to criticize my position because theoretically I don't really have a position. All I want to know is the truth. And I think a lot of you guys, also want to know the truth. Yes, there are certain individuals who have a particular stance, like you might be called an anti-vaxxer because you have a predetermined stance against vaccines. I don't consider myself to be one of those because if there is evidence and if it is proven that a vaccine is able to help, then fine. If there is evidence that provides a question mark as to the results, or if on the balance of probabilities it seems that the vaccine may not help but may harm, well then obviously I don't want the vaccine. So that's pretty much the way I look at things. I don't believe in the existence of God because, well, according to the evidence, it's very difficult to prove that God exists. But on the other hand, it's very difficult to prove that God doesn't exist. So I'm not saying that I'm an atheist, I'm saying I'm agnostic. I'm basically saying I don't know because there is insufficient evidence one way or another way. And that is my position with the coronavirus. But one thing is for sure, and that is that COVID-19 is not new. It is part of the coronavirus family. It is a strand or a branch of the coronavirus family. So whilst this particular strand may be new, the actual coronavirus was first discovered in 1935. So this is a type of virus that has been around with us for a very, very long time. In fact, 85 years. Well, a little bit more, 86 perhaps. There are a couple of other facts that we also need to consider which makes things a little bit scary. And that is that since 1935, there has not been any successful vaccine developed which is able to overcome any of these strands of coronavirus. So what is the implication of that? Well, the implication of that is that there is a very high likelihood that we are not going to find a successful vaccine very soon. You're saying, well, hang on, what are you talking about? There are vaccines coming onto the market right now. Very, very true. But don't read in between the lines. Listen to exactly what I'm saying, that I don't think that the likelihood of finding a very successful vaccine is going to be highly probable. We are just rolling out these vaccines now. We still do not know what the long-term consequences are going to be, and we still really don't know how effective these vaccines are. I'm not saying that these vaccines will not be successful. I'm not saying that they're a fraud. I'm not saying that they're a scam. I'm just saying that I'm a little bit doubtful and a little bit skeptical at this stage because the previous vaccine development from scratch was for the Ebola virus, which was also a very, very serious virus. It was a killer, and that took 5 years from start to finish. 5 years. The coronavirus has been with us for just over 1 year. So if this vaccine is to prove to become successful, it is going to absolutely annihilate and smash all previous records when it comes to successful vaccines. Okay, so let's summarize what we've covered so far, and that is that COVID-19 belongs to the coronavirus family, which is a virus affecting the respiratory system. Coronaviruses have been around since 1935. They are fairly well known. And to date, there has been no successfully developed vaccine against any coronavirus strands. We do have a number of COVID-19 vaccines being launched all around the world, but again, there is insufficient evidence to suggest whether these vaccines are successful, not just in the short term, but also in the longer term. Now, when we're talking about short term, I'm talking, months, literally months. We don't know what's going to happen in the next month or 2 or 3 or 4, or because that sort of time period hasn't passed yet, let alone what's going to happen many, many years in the future. Let's talk about vaccines. This is a serious issue that has very wide-ranging consequences. Not just are we talking about health consequences, but we're also talking about economic consequences as well. I'm reading a lot of commentary about the vaccines, and boy, it's certainly getting heated. Let me make some points that may be useful for you to consider, as well as potentially use in debates that you may be involved with in regards to the vaccines. I've discussed one point already, and that is that the period of time since COVID-19 has been identified and the launch of the actual vaccine is incredibly short. In fact, as I said, it annihilates the previous record of 5 years since the launch of a vaccine against the Ebola virus. Now, this is pretty scary because this is a very complicated and complex vaccine that actually impacts DNA and a number of other elements in our body. Now, I don't have the know-how and knowledge to provide a lot of details about how it actually impacts our body, but I know that it does. I haven't really focused on the impact of this vaccine because it's well beyond my understanding, and it's not really relevant to what I do. But just to say that this is a very, very serious vaccine and has potentially very serious impact on our body. Not just do I know this, but I know that many of you know this as well. And as a result, there is increasing amount of resentment towards the vaccine because many skeptics, and I actually would side with these skeptics because as far as I'm concerned, these skeptics are probably at the higher end of the intellectual spectrum because they understand that this is a very, very short period of time. They actually have an idea that it's a very short period of time in the development of this vaccine, and they also have an understanding of the potential consequences of the vaccine on the body, and these individuals also understand that it's not a matter of you taking the vaccine today and then if you survive until tomorrow then everything is great. These individuals tend to consider the future, like perhaps even having children, and what impact that's going to have. Like there was a big disaster in the 1960s with thalidomide, which was a medication which was mainly targeted at women for, I think it was morning sickness or something like that. And so, look, everything seemed great until children were born without limbs. And it was only then discovered that this medication had serious complications, and it totally destroyed a part of one generation where we had thousands, tens of thousands of kids born without limbs, like disabled, and this could have happened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later down the track. So these people who are skeptical about the COVID vaccine are thinking that far ahead, and that's obviously relevant. It's also a good idea because the world isn't going to end tomorrow. In Australia, and this is obviously the focus of this podcast, there has been an increasing campaign which is aimed towards trying to make people feel more welcoming towards this vaccine. Our leaders, politicians, who want us to be vaccinated, are seeing that there is resentment, seeing that there are protests, seeing that there are critics, and they're seeing that this is a serious issue that they're facing. So what they're trying to do is trying to obviously boost confidence in the vaccine rollout through, lip service, by getting people to explain how beneficial these vaccines are, and so forth. And one of the things that they are doing is having our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, be one of the first people to take a vaccine. In fact, I watched today on the news as he was administered the vaccine, and a lot of people who are pro the vaccine are saying, well, look, this guy is taking the vaccine. He's not an idiot. He's our leader. He's obviously not scared of taking it. Well, it must be very safe. We need to be very careful about that because it's very, very easy to do a swap. What I mean by that is that he could be taking saline, he could be taking a vitamin jab. I'm not saying that that is occurring. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that is a possibility. I'm just saying that seeing him take the jab does not mean that the vaccine is safe, because it's very, very easy to do a swap and inject him with something that is not the actual COVID-19 vaccination, if the powers that be believe that this could be a risk to him. Imagine if there was an adverse consequence as a result of the jab. So what I'm trying to say is that anybody can have an adverse reaction to a particular vaccination, even though that vaccination can be 99.99% safe. Now, this, I'm sure, would be taken into account by the people who want to change the public's perception about the COVID vaccine. So it just, even for public relations, it just doesn't make sense for our Prime Minister to be injected with the COVID-19 vaccine just in case, God forbid, a 1 in a million chance occurs that he has some adverse reaction. This would be an absolute public relations disaster. It would be embarrassing. It would be tragic for the whole industry, for the whole medical world, for the whole COVID-19 industry. So taking this into consideration, I am highly skeptical that our leaders are actually being given this injection in order to save themselves or protect them against the actual virus. On the other hand, and this is incredibly important, and this is what would put my mind at ease, not whether Scott Morrison or any other leader is apparently being injected by the COVID-19 vaccine, but the fact that the COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers are actually immune to repercussions if there are problems. This is unheard of. Everybody above retarded level knows that there are consumer protections against pretty much anything. If you buy a tennis ball and then you bounce it a couple of times and then it explodes, you have the right to go back to the store and get your money back by saying, look, this is ridiculous, it just disintegrated, what a piece of crap, I want my money back. In this case, the tennis ball was not fit for purpose. If you buy a chair and you sit on that chair and that chair crumbles underneath you and you injure yourself, well, not only will you be given your money back because the chair was not fit for purpose, assuming you don't weigh 500 kilograms, but if you're a normal individual with a normal weight and you sit on the chair, it collapses beneath you, that's not fit for purpose. Not only are you allowed to get your money back by law, but if you do suffer damage, like you break your back or something like that, you have the right to take that company to court and sue for damages for the cost that you've incurred as well as for pain and suffering. That is just normal. I don't think anybody will argue that. In fact, that is so normal that there are insurance policies that corporates take out against that. For example, public liability insurance. That's just normal part of business. Just so happens that in this case, we are being told that this vaccine is so safe that even our leaders are taking it. Why is it that such an obviously safe vaccine is not faced with the same consumer protections as any other product. The vaccine manufacturers cannot be ever taken to court for any potential damage, losses, problems that may arise. They are completely immune. Perhaps it seems that insurance companies won't insure them. I don't know. What I do know is that these guys are immune. Why? I believe I know why. And that is because the vaccine has major potential dangers associated to it. One of them is the very fast-tracked approach to get it to market. That is something that you also need to consider. If you are one of those individuals who are looking at our leaders being injected with the vaccine and thinking, oh, well, it must be safe, then you should consider the fact that this is an unprecedented situation, that the manufacturers of this vaccine are immune. Under normal circumstances, when an organization launches their products on the market, these products are made fit for purpose, these products are safe, yet there are repercussions if something does occur. This completely turns upside down the way that organizations and products are launched onto the marketplace. And that's something that you need to take into account. I have raised this point on a number of forums and been involved in a number of debates and mentioned this. Now, it worries me, it disappoints me how stupid, how thick, how dumb people can be. Some of the reactions I have had to this very serious and pretty rock solid question are just amazing. I mean, I've had one woman who says that, well, it's not possible for them to have any protections because anti-vaxxers will take them to court if they happen to sneeze after taking this vaccine. What an absolute moron woman. It just shows me how clueless she is about the actual legal system. It's as if anyone can just roll up to court and just sue anybody, and the court will say, well, what's your argument? And your argument is, well, because I didn't feel very well. And then the court will say, well, okay, well, here's $1 million compensation. I mean, the court system consists of specialists on both sides of the case who scrutinize every element of the case. It's not a matter of someone taking a vaccine and then they get a head spin or they fall over and they take the manufacturers of this vaccine to court, and then they reap millions of dollars. Firstly, to establish a court case, it's very, very expensive, and you need to have a serious case against the defendant if you want to take a court case, and then your presentation gets highly scrutinized. So saying to me that well in this case, because there is so much skepticism towards this vaccine, that the company could not be potentially held liable because people will be taking them to court over garbage, is just total crap. And I'm just concerned that such morons are going to be listening to this podcast and are just going to be making stuff up that is just baseless. Whilst you're probably thinking, well, this guy is very, very negative towards this vaccine, all I'm doing really is just presenting the evidence. And all I'm saying at the moment is that on the one hand, we are being told how safe the vaccine is because our leaders are taking the vaccine live in front of us on television, which, like I said, can be very easily altered. On the other hand, the manufacturers, for the first time ever, have had a law that has been passed which shields them from potential legal consequences if there are problems. So if I'm faced with these two conflicting pieces of evidence, well then I tend to sort of consider more, why would these companies be shielded, protected? It's as if the experts in this case, because it's not some idiot on the street who said, well, we should protect these manufacturers from potential liabilities. No. That decision would have been made, because remember, this decision is made at the highest levels. It's not made by the local council. This is made by the senior levels of government. So the senior levels of government, where this law has been introduced, they have experts, they have industry experts, they have specialists, they have investigations undertaken into this, and then the conclusion, based on all that evidence, on all this input, the conclusion has been made: look guys, we believe that these companies should be immune from potential legal implications if there are serious problems. Obviously, they're not going to worry about somebody having a head spin and then falling over and knocking their elbow and getting a $1,000 compensation. It's obviously, a lot more serious than that, because these companies are multi-billion-dollar companies. So in order to protect them, you're obviously protecting them against multi-billion-dollar claims. Now, what could result in multi-billion-dollar claims? Well, easy, very, very serious, widespread consequences. That's the way that I'm reading into this. I'd like to move on now to the field that I really enjoy and I really specialize in, and that is business and economics, and the implications of the vaccine on business and economics. And unfortunately, the vaccine is very relevant here again, and the consequences of this can be very, very serious. And so I want you to listen to this very carefully, because this could impact, well, you. Now, as I said already, Covid-19 is an airborne virus which has been around in one way or another for over 85 years now, in various strains. Again, I'm talking about the virus as in affecting the respiratory system, and I'm talking about the coronavirus. It is a very, very complex issue, and there is a lot more involved than simply finding a vaccine. I believe that the focus on finding a vaccine has created complacency among the community in Australia, with people believing it will be over soon. We keep hearing on the news or in public announcements that, if we have to go through these lockdowns, and that our borders are closed, and that we don't have any tourists, and overseas students are not here. But look, that's the environment we're in, that's the COVID-19 reality. But the vaccine is around the corner. Once we get the vaccine, we're going to go into a COVID normal, the post-vaccine COVID normal. Everything is going to be great. Just hold out. It's around the corner, and so forth. This vaccine has been rolled out in America, in Europe, and in other parts of the world, and it's now coming into Australia. We are now around the corner. So if things are tough for you, if you're struggling, if your business is struggling, just hang in there a little bit longer. We are almost out of it. Get the vaccine. Ensure that everyone gets the vaccine. Everything's going to be back to normal. Now, I'm trying to highlight that people should step back and see the bigger picture, okay? In contrast to what the talking heads are saying, I unfortunately see many more lockdowns in the future in Australia, and I don't see the COVID-19 issue going away anytime soon. Now, each lockdown is a punch in the guts to a business, and in turn is another nail in the coffin for the employees if, it's not a sole trader business. So what does that mean for you? And this is one of the beauty of my podcasts and my channel, I guess, is that unlike just talking generally and discussing certain issues, I, as a business consultant, I'm an outcomes motivated type of guy. I provide, or I try to provide suggestions. I try to provide you tools or a direction or actions that you should take to overcome or to take advantage to protect yourself against the issues or problems or whatever it may be that I discuss in the podcast. So this COVID-19 podcast is not about me just theorizing about COVID-19 and discussing the actual virus itself. No, it's about presenting to you a situation that we have in the economy at the moment, we have in Australia, and then after I present the situation, this scenario, the reality, I then go into what you need to do. Assuming that I'm correct and that the vaccine is not going to be as successful as we are led to believe, I believe that you require a battle plan for the next few years. Now, this is true whether you're an employer, whether you're an employee, or whether you're an entrepreneur. In other words, someone who is, a businessman basically. Someone who takes advantage of opportunities that occur in the economy, in the market. I really strongly suggest that you take a conservative position and be prepared for a worst case scenario. In other words, if the vaccine turns out to be great, successful, no consequences, or maybe a minor consequence here or there, but if it gets rolled out, if somehow everybody takes it, everybody's convinced that it's great, and in fact it turns out to be great, we all become healthy and immune and safe and everything's going to be super, well then obviously we have nothing to discuss. Then everything will become back to normal. We just move on and make lots of money and live happily ever after. What I'm saying is that in that case, well, we don't need a battle plan. Life will just go on. But what I'm saying is, what if that doesn't happen? As a business owner myself, I like to create contingency plans. In other words, what ifs. And that's why I'm presenting this situation to you. I'm basically saying, what if we have problems? What if the uptake of the vaccine is inadequate? What if there are consequences and the vaccine gets taken off the shelves? What if we get immunized here in Australia, but what if other countries or other citizens, for one reason or another, do not get immunized? What if there are new strains of COVID-19 like we're having now, the UK strain, South African strain, whatever? There could be 50 more strains which could eventually come out. What happens if we don't have vaccines for those? And what happens if we have outbreaks in the economy? And what happens if we continue to have lockdowns? What happens then? Well, obviously we've got a problem. But you can protect yourself to some extent. And one of the things that you can do is, well, don't spend money on crap. Don't just think, oh, well, look, yeah, cool vaccines here, everything's going to be great, I'm not going to be conservative anymore, I've saved a little bit of money, okay, let's party a little bit. The hotels and motels are offering cheaper rates now, and cruise liners are offering cheaper rates because, they're desperate for cash. Let's party, let's go out there, let's do, things because, well, we've got a bit of money saved up and we can, and business is going to go back to normal soon. I'm saying don't do that. Not yet. Not yet. It's not a really good idea to do that. Don't rely on your employer if you are an employee, okay? Now, this does not apply to all employees, although I have bad news for you. Even though you might think my position, I work for the local council, I work for the government, or I work for, a really rock solid employer who is immune to the consequences that are occurring at the moment. Man, have I got some really bad news for you. Well, maybe not bad news, but news to consider. So once again, listen very carefully if you think that this is not relevant to you, because as I said right at the beginning, this is a very complicated issue. It is a very wide impacting issue. If you are an employee of a typical private enterprise, be very careful, because each lockdown will most probably create problems for the typical business. There are some businesses which are prospering as a result of this. I mean, imagine being the business that's making face masks. Oh, this would be great. This would be, but I'm talking generally the typical employer. As I said, each lockdown is a kick in the nuts, punch in the teeth. Okay? There are only certain amount of times you can be kicked in the nuts or punched in the teeth before you've had enough. And we know that many businesses Australia-wide have already closed their doors, and if they have had employees, well, quite obviously these employees have lost their jobs. So as more lockdowns or more issues are potentially, I'm obviously not saying yes this is going to happen, because I can't tell the future. If I did, I'd obviously go and put all my money on Tats Lotto. I'm just saying, if potentially there are going to be more lockdowns, which I feel that the probability is that is going to occur, that's going to impact businesses negatively, be prepared. Be prepared to lose your job. Be prepared to have your hours cut. Look for other opportunities. If you are a business owner, if you're a businessman, run your business conservatively. Don't think, okay, cool, we're just around the corner. I've got a tourism business. Borders are going to be opening soon. Okay, I'm going to start to prepare. I'm going to buy assets. Don't do that yet. Okay, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Be proactive. Be prepared to do things differently, and be prepared to adapt. Now, this applies to you employees, and this applies to you employers. If you're an employee, learn skills. Get into business. I'm going to discuss this later down the track. Get into business. That's in fact one of the main things that I would be advising people to do. Okay, employers, business owners, entrepreneurs, be proactive. One of my businesses that I'm involved in is a tourism business. Oh man, oh gosh. I have had in the past 7 months, I have had one booking. That's okay, not a problem at all. Thanks to my trend forecasting skills, thanks to my analysis of this situation, by about mid last year, I realized this was going to be a long-term issue. And I pretty much shifted my focus from my tours to a different part of my tourism business, which I then put a lot of emphasis on, and that is through the export and wholesale of Australian themed products. You probably don't know what I'm talking about, doesn't matter. All I'm saying is that I understood that tourism as we knew it wasn't going to come back soon. I then accepted that because, well, I had to really if I wanted to make money. And so I thought, well, what can I do to steer my business into a direction where I can make money, because obviously I need to make money. I've established a different arm, a second arm of my operations, which is actually growing and has actually saved me a lot of problems. So again, there are opportunities in any situations, but that got me to become proactive, and I was prepared to do things differently after I realized that we are in this for the long term. So by doing that, you could potentially be positioning yourself to take advantage of opportunities. Okay, I'll give you a very good example. There have been and will be a lot of business failures, a lot of liquidations. Prices will be falling, and there's going to be a lot of desperate people out there. Okay, now if you're going to be one of those, well, Australia, we've got a problem, but you can be on this other side of that, and then you can actually take advantage of that. And I have, again, I told you, I have moved into wholesaling of Australian themed products. I have been able to source a lot of beautiful, high quality, fantastic products at dirt cheap prices as a result of this situation. Again, I'm fortunate because I'm skilled in this particular field, business, economics, I do trend forecasting, and I was onto this virus very, very quickly with my analysis and investigation. I was able to act very, very quickly. And I was able to help some of the people, some of my clients, to do the same. So if you've got issues, or if you've got problems, or if you've got questions, I'm always available for you to help you out. I've done it for myself, I've done it for others, I can probably do it for you as well. Now, the other thing, if you're in business and you sell stuff, like I do in this case now, be very careful about providing credit, because you might be proactive, you might be very clever, you might be very smart, you might be very opportunistic, but your clients may not be. And every time a business fails, every time a business gets liquidated or goes bankrupt, there are unpaid bills, there are unpaid creditors, okay? And you may be one of them. In fact, as things deteriorate in the economy, there's going to be a larger number of business failures, and there's going to be a larger number of burnt creditors. Be very careful, don't be one of them. Alter your credit terms so that you can get cash up front. That would be ideal. If you get cash, cash is king, remember that. Okay? Yes, I'm not retarded. I understand that this may cost you some sales. I understand that obviously the better sales terms you offer, the more flexible you are, the higher the chances you are of getting sales. But what I'm saying is that consider the fact that sometimes it's better to lose potential sales than you actually selling goods which you've paid for, which your assets which have cost you money, you actually selling them, and then not get paid later on because the person or the business you've sold it to has actually gone out of business. So remember, if you forfeit a sale, it doesn't actually cost you anything. All it means is that you haven't received money which you potentially could have. But if you lose your products to your customer, well then that's a double hit, because not only have you not received any income that you're hoping for, but you've actually lost goods which you've paid for. So that's a double hit. Okay. So that's the situation there. Now, unfortunately, these are the things that affect you right now. But it gets worse. Most probably, the government will keep throwing buckets of cash at the economy, okay, to support the economy. Okay, we know that's what the government's done so far, and the government will continue to do that. This will have limited impact, okay, on the economy. It's going to be positive, obviously. Any form of government grants, JobKeeper, JobSeeker, whatever, grants to business owners, that's going to be helpful. But in most cases, in almost all cases, remember, these are just subsidies. They won't pay for everything. Okay, so it's going to have a limited impact. It's not going to ensure that you are trading as profitably as you could have. It's just perhaps going to give you some support from going bankrupt. Okay, but remember, guys, all this money that's been thrown around will have to be paid back eventually. All this means is that when the economy begins to finally improve, whenever it will be, and I know that it will be one day, okay, growth is going to be stunted, since the government will impose various taxes, levies, rates, whatever they may impose, additional things, to slowly reduce their own debts and deficits. The government is and will be heavily in debt, and they will be needing, not just wanting, they'll be needing their money back to cover those debts. So the government will have their ongoing expenses as they do, but they're going to have a massive debt burden which they're going to have to service, and they will be needing extra cash for that. And well, guess where their money is going to be coming from? Well, us, in one way or another. The more money the government throws at this, the more will need to be repaid. Yes, very, very obvious, but people don't think about this too often. So whichever way we look at it, the short term or long term, the outlook is not good. Okay, guys? So save cash, avoid debt. I just want to go back to one thing. Remember when I said to you, if you're an employee and you believe that you work for an employer that is rock solid, and some of you may do. Now imagine if you're a television presenter or working for a TV channel and you're presenting the news as an example. That's obviously, you're not going to get thrown out because COVID-19. News is and will be. If you're working for the government, obviously a lot of the government agencies now have a lot on their plates now, so you're going to be working for the government for a very long time. But, unfortunately, they've got you in their grip. As an employee, you are a bum boy. You are a bum boy, you are a slave, you are a cotton picker. You do what you are told to do and you are compensated for it. And it gets worse. Normally you are compensated for it by being paid. Now, you are probably going to be forced to take the vaccine. You will potentially be given an ultimatum. Look guys, this is a serious issue, this is a pandemic, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. If you want to continue to be working with us, you have to fulfill certain obligations. You have to fulfill certain criteria. One of those criteria is to get the jab. If you are one of those individuals who feels it's safe to do so, who feels it's the right thing to do so, who believes that, look, it's been tested for a month or two, everything seems to be fine, love it, whatever, who cares? Exactly, who cares? Go for it. Knock yourself out, good on ya, okay, move on. But if you are one of these individuals who is a little bit skeptical, or if you are on the more of the extreme case where you're thinking, oh, no way am I going to get this crap injected into me, well, you got two choices, man. Either you do, or you're out of your job. So that's the reality. That goes back to some of the other points I've mentioned. Be proactive, be prepared to do things differently, adapt. Don't just think to yourself and be a smartass and think, well, I've got a safe job, I don't care, businesses are failing, aren't I clever because I'm employed by the government, say. I'm untouchable, how cool is this? Yeah, that's as cool until the point where you are going to be forced. No, you'll never be forced. You'll never be forced. It's a little bit like if you're on unemployment benefits. If you're unemployed, you're not forced to look for it. The government doesn't force you to look for a job. They just say that it's a mutual obligation which you have voluntarily agreed to. You don't want to look for a job because you don't want to be anyone's cotton picker. That's okay. Just don't ask for money. You don't want to vaccinate your kids? Yeah, no worries. You don't have to vaccinate your kids. They just won't be accepted to a public school. Oh, you can go to a private school if you want and, pay $20 or $30 or $40,000 a year. Not a problem. But you can't go to a public school. In fact, you probably can't use a lot of public services. You don't want to get the Covid-19 vaccination? Yeah, that's okay. We obviously can't force you to. It's your body, it's your human right. But unfortunately, we cannot continue employing you because that is the condition under which you are employed. So the decision is yours. Business crew, that is the end of the first podcast. Something for you to think about. A lot of information here. But there is a lot more to come, and things are getting interesting. The next podcast, I am going to be talking to you about conspiracy theorists. And you are going to be amazed about who the conspiracy theorists are in this field. My investigation has identified a very, very unusual bunch of conspiracy theorists. I'm also going to discuss the actual coronavirus's impact on our economy and the way that the government has approached this. And believe me, if you are enjoying, or you will hopefully have enjoyed what I have said so far, if you have found this valuable, if you have found this informative, if you have learned something, oh boy, you don't want to miss out on the next podcast.